Welcome to Driving the Line, the pursuit of safety, where we talk about the real issues out on the road, focus on safe driving, and learn industry best practices from your hosts Kenny Ray, Mike Bohan, and Jim Seibert, in the hopes that by driving the line, we get more drivers home safe and sound. This podcast was made possible by Marsh McLennan Agency.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Driving the Line, the Pursuit of Safety podcast, where we are always in the pursuit of safety. We've got something special for you today. We're in a room full of people, a little bit of a distraction. Mike, what is going on?
Well, I tell you, we're trying something new. This is almost kind of like a Driving the Line extra, so to speak. We've never done this before. We've never recorded a podcast in front of a group. We don't have guests on very often. We have done that a couple of times, but where we're at is Osage Beach, Missouri, at the Missouri Trucking Association's safety conference. We do this every year. It's a great group of professionals. And what we wanted to do this year was, after the sessions were over, we wanted to grab a couple of guys and just talk with them about safety. Because these two guys that are sitting right next to me are two of the best safety guys in the business. And I'll introduce them here in a second. But both of these guys have served the Missouri Trucking Association as chair of the Council of Safety Supervisors. So that's who sponsors this event. That's who's putting it on. One of the individuals is the current chair, and one of them was the previous chair. So to my direct left, we've got Brad Redden, who's the current chair. Brad's with Buchheit Logistics here in Missouri, and you're the safety director and human resources director down there.
And training and HR and
We're a lot of different hats.
Yes.
Yeah. And directly to his left, we've got Andy Standefer with Fleenor Brothers down in Southwest Missouri, and safety director slash HR slash driver slash you wear some different hats too, don't you?
Just like every other small business, you got more than one job, right?
Yeah.
We do what we got to do to get the job done.
And then, as always, Kenny's here, Mike here, Jim here. And again, we just wanted to kind of have a conversation. We're gathering here this week to talk about safety with all of our group, but we want to pick your brains and ask you what safety means to you and why you do what you do. Because I've asked Jim and I've asked Kenny this question. Did you have a moment where you realized what you do makes a difference and it means something to you? Just you kind of had that moment, or maybe it was a gradual thing. But Brad, do you, in your career, because you've been at several different companies and where you're at now, you've got a great culture, you've got great folks there, but is there a moment in your career when you can look back and say, I knew I was doing something that made a difference, and I knew this was something that I'm gonna give my career to?
It was really more of a gradual transition from the truck into the office. Part of that was pushed by my wife and a personal need. But I had been groomed and helped along throughout my career by some very good mentors. And the first opportunity that came along to transition to the safety and training side of things, I jumped all over it.
And how long have you been in safety?
Got out of the truck in 2009, come back from Afghanistan in 2010. It's when I transitioned into training and safety.
I did fail to mention that you are a veteran. We appreciate your service to the country. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Andy, how about you?
So I got into the trucking industry when I was 26 years old. That was just a couple of years ago, by the way.
Let's add that up, right?
Trucking changed my life. As a young man, I had attempted a few different paths, and I finally, just succumbed to what I wanted to do since I was a little boy. And it turned out I was pretty decent at it. I started, training student drivers as a driver finisher, and I found out about this passion that I had for the industry, trucking, and education. And that's where it all just kind of took off from there. We had a great session today where we heard from Kenneth Tolliver, and one thing he continually talked about was passion. And that's where it all just came together at. We started, that led to an instructional role in the safety department, and it all just kind of took off from there.
And I think that's something that, and you guys speak to this, Kenny, I know when you talk safety, you're one of the most passionate guys I know, but if you can't be passionate about what you're doing, especially in this role, you're either not doing it right, or you probably ought to find something else to do. You've got to have that aspect of your professional life to do what we do, right? I mean, it's just something you've got to have. So one of the things that is we talk amongst ourselves when we look at the clients that we work with on a regular basis. Having safety directors in positions like you guys are in, it's a joy to work with folks like you, because there's a lot of companies out there that, finding a good driver's hard, but finding a good safety director is hard, a good safety manager, just like finding a good mechanic's hard. Good folks are hard to find. So I commend you guys in what you do and the passion that you have, not just for your companies, but for this industry and specifically the safety rules.
Thank you, Mike. That's important also on the other side of the fence with the drivers, gaining their trust, their respect, and them understanding that when something happens, we're not going to be immediately judgmental, that we're going to try to sit in their seat and look through their eyes.
What he just said, you've got a really good real life example of that, because I've heard you say this multiple times, Andy, when it's like to really know what these drivers are going through, the challenges they face out on the road, what, we're preaching to them safety all the time, but what they actually are coming up against when they're out there on the road. You witness that firsthand because you still get out in a truck and drive stuff.
I do. I drove 60,000 miles last year, in addition to my day-to-day stuff. So technology is great. That enables us to work anywhere in the world these days. But to have that vantage point, to understand what our drivers do day in and day out, to go to the sites they go to, safety becomes a resource for the company. I think drivers always joke, every time they mess up, we got to go see the safety department. It's not the principal's office. We're here to help drivers succeed.
Yeah,
that's what we do.
It's servant leadership. I mean, you're really there to help them succeed.
Absolutely.
Guys, we know from the demographics of our audience that a lot of the folks that listen to the podcast are safety directors. We've got a good following of drivers, and then we've got a group of other folks, owners of trucking companies, administrative people, but most of them are related to the trucking industry in one way or another. A lot of them don't have CDLs, the safety directors, so they don't have the opportunity that you guys do to actually get behind the wheel and drive the truck. But I think that we could make an application of what y'all just shared, that it would be equally effective to do a ride along with a driver, particularly if you got a top-notch driver, to really see what he or she does on a daily basis. And y'all know I'm from Texas, and I want to pause here and say what a beautiful state you guys have the privilege of living in. I came in from the South, came up through Joplin and Springfield and up that way. And I'm not real sure how far north, Mike, I am in the state of Missouri. I don't know much about Missouri geography, but the part I've seen so far has been gorgeous.
Yeah.
Beautiful state. And it's an honor to be here with y'all. In the introduction, both y'all indicated you wear a lot of different hats. And our safety directors in Texas tend to do the very same thing. And so I'd like for y'all to share a word of encouragement. Most of the safety, unless they work for a really big motor carrier where they have a staff, most of them are doing multiple jobs. And sometimes they're tired, they're frustrated, they're pulled 2 or 3 different directions at the same time. So if y'all were in a mentoring role to a young safety director coming into the industry, what kind of advice would you give them about navigating that, wearing those different hats?
Prioritize.
And speak to that, please.
Deal with the most critical issues first. If it sits on that same list for more than a couple of days, it probably wasn't as important.
There you go.
There's always a joke in our world that safety, we don't produce revenue, but, we sure can save a lot. I would say be a partner in the business. It's worth it. Be part of that business. And when you get down in the ranks and understand what other folks do by wearing those other hats, that safety culture starts to infiltrate the entire organization.
To add on to that, what Mike said earlier is wholly true. You are in more of a serving role. You're not their boss. You're not their dispatcher. You're not the owner of the company. You are there to make that driver successful, and in turn, the safety director becomes successful, and therefore the company does as well.
I couldn't have said it any better. I appreciate that. I know it's frustrating for Mike and I, sometimes for Jim. We'll go into one of our clients, which is a trucking company, And they'll call and they'll say, we got a new safety director. I want you to come by and meet them. And we walk in and there's a young man or young woman sitting in there. I had this happen recently and I was just trying to develop some rapport. And I said, well, what do you know about the trucking industry? It happened to be a young lady. She said, well, I know they go when they stop. And she said, and I'm not real sure why they do that. And I said, well, what's your background? And she said, well, I was working at Sonic last week and somebody just dubbed her a safety director. Now, we can make light of that, or we can say, guess what? That's the reality for that company. And they put that young lady in that position. She doesn't even have any idea what the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations are. But she wants to learn. She had a very teachable spirit. So we've got folks like that literally it's their first week on the job. And then we got some people like sitting around this table, been doing this for decades. And so the words of encouragement y'all give, I'm grateful for that.
Those individuals should be part of a trucking association within their state and rely on the other safety directors. It's a team effort.
No doubt. Totally agree.
We all came to this knowing nothing. And
at some point,
and to associate with great folks like this, Mike, I've known you for better part of a decade now. And, you've been very instrumental in my personal success. And, and that filters down, that goes down to the driver ranks. Because like I said, at the end of the day, we're here to support the drivers and make sure they're successful. And that's when we all win.
Well, it's that looking at it in a team mindset, just like you said, you're supporting the drivers, but in reality, it's that entire company is a team, and to be successful, all the parts got to work together. Because how often, and maybe you guys have been to that, you don't have to name names or anything like that, but maybe you've been in situations where, safety's button heads with operations and that becomes an issue. But for a company to really be successful, those two parts of the company have to walk hand in hand. Otherwise you're constantly fighting yourself.
Absolutely true. The safety department is not the keeper of safety. That has to be everybody's role.
I think we got a podcast over trucking association membership, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear you bring that up. You got a brand new safety director, getting them involved in an association, promoting that. You kind of beat around it, but like teaching others teaches you more, right? And getting involved in this and learning from the seasoned, the people, and your military background is showing in some of the things that you've said so far, like you're prioritize and execute. So I'm interested, what was your job in the military?
Oh, I retired as a chief petty officer, but I was a construction electrician in Seabees.
Okay. Do you find your background detail oriented? Did you find it helping you when you think of the leadership in the company, being actively involved in their jobs, regulatory wise, and the rules?
To the point that my boss tells me, I don't really want to know the details.
Yeah.
I trust you do.
Yeah. As I move around the regulatory world, I'm prior service as well. It always kind of makes me chuckle a little bit how many prior law enforcement, prior military end up in the different facets of regulatory affairs. We don't produce revenue, but we can save a lot. What do you mean?
Well, avoiding the accident to start with. And it's not just, accidents aren't just about claims and money. It's about lives. I used to talk to orientation classes every week, and I would kind of equate the importance of safety to the commercial airline industry. For example, you talk about pilots have zero room for error because if they fail, lives are at stake, right? They're responsible for a couple hundred people at a time. And when you get behind the driver's seat and you watch all the hundreds, if not thousands of cars that pass you every day, why should that be less important to us?
We did an episode recently and we shared some of those stats. And y'all both know I'm from Texas and fiercely proud of my state. But there's some things that happen in my state I'm not proud of. We have not had a deathless day in the state of Texas since November of 2000. We kill an average of 12 people a day on our public highways in Texas. And you make an analogy about the aircraft industry. Can you imagine if the airlines were killing basically 90 people a week, which is what we do in Texas on our public highways? Congress would step in and make a nationwide shutdown and say, whatever it takes y'all to fix this, fix it. That's what motivates the three of us. And I'm sure for you two guys as well, is for us to stop that, where that family don't get that knock on the door at 3 a.m, and so I commend both of you for your commitment to excellence. Very proud of you for doing that.
The point you made, it's like money's not everything. So the important thing is protecting lives. We talk about that on our podcast all the time. Absolutely. It's like to protect life. That's our number one goal. Whether it's your driver, whether it's the motoring public, that's the number one goal. But you also mentioned something about the claims and the money, and we all know that a claim today is significantly larger than the same claim 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 2 years ago. So there's something to that as well. For a company to be successful, when you're talking about people's livelihoods, their careers, things like that. So expound on that a little bit and what you guys see every day. It's like, if you can settle a claim, or that maybe technology that you use to help you mitigate some of that, because I know that you guys, that's one of the hats that you wear as well.
Quick response.
Yeah.
And, if you're responsible for your actions, you can take care of those very effectively without having to make that a long, drawn out and very costly process. Take responsibility.
Flip side of that, you can be the safest fleet in the entire nation by parking every truck on the fence. So there is some inherent risk with being out on the road in the public. To Andy's point, yes, you do want to quickly react to the situation, own it if it's yours. Don't fight that.
I'm just grateful that they mentioned about getting in front of these claims quick, because y'all know we work for an insurance agency, and one of the we're not here to sell it. None of us sell insurance, but we hear complaints sometimes about motor carriers not getting on the claims quick enough, and particularly now with forward-facing cameras. That camera it may exonerate the driver, or the flip side of that is it may let you know what, we need to get on this claim quick because it's ours and we need to own it. And so what are your thoughts about how technology is changing the way that we're handling claims, particularly the expediency, how fast we're doing them, and the interaction with adjusters and those sorts of things?
If you have a camera that shows what happened, the claim is a slam dunk, one direction or the other. Right. There is no investigation. There is no arguing back and forth over who's at fault. Unfortunately, cameras don't see everything.
Yeah,
this is true. And sometimes it's such a short snippet that it doesn't paint the entire picture. Thankfully, we have that, extended recording option out there where we could go back in time a little bit. But yeah, you're exactly right, Brad. That video is invaluable when it comes to painting that picture and knowing how to respond.
Well, to the point now that even law enforcement will ask for that video standing there and it may not even be a crash scene. It may be just a traffic stop, but they'll ask for that video. And sometimes the driver is not at fault and the officer will recognize that immediately.
Well, our session this morning, Captain Kelly and his folks were there, and they mentioned that about it. Troopers on the road, the investigating officers requesting that footage of a crash, so they can, so they can write an accurate report. If there's cameras there showing what happened, they want to get the report right. Because to me, that's the point of it. Whether like you said, Brad, if it's good or bad, we own it, but we want it to be right. We want it to be accurate, and that's what it does. So the troopers that are investigating those crashes, they want that very same thing.
Well, it helps expedite that claim. It also saves me from having to data queue something later because the report is wrong.
100%. The downstream implications for information that is not correct that can help that investigation come out the right way.
Our job just got easier.
That's right. It's a win for everybody. In law enforcement, in my experience, it's not, do you have the camera footage? Will you send me the camera footage? They know that there's a lot of operators, probably more operators now that have outward facing video at least that don't.
Yeah, it's become more of a norm than it was, where it was you had a few. I remember working with a company based out of Illinois years ago, that it was one of the first times that situation came up, and they had just installed cameras, and one of the stories that they told was, yeah, we had an accident, and the truck was turning left, and somebody ran a red light, ran into the truck. And of course, there were conflicting stories about who hit who and that kind of stuff. And the safety director got on the phone with the officer at the scene, and he said, "Well, send me the video." And so he did, which showed that the truck driver had a green arrow turning left, and the other car ran a red light and hit him in the duals. So the officer wrote his report based on that, cited the other person, and it was like that company was sold from the get-go. But that was 10 years ago, and now it's much more prevalent.
All right. Parting thoughts. If y'all had the opportunity just to freelance and share wisdom, knowing this, a large percentage of our listeners are safety directors at trucking companies. A large percentage are over-the-road drivers that listen to us while they're driving down the highway. So just what words of wisdom? You can just freelance and share what your thoughts are.
For the drivers, always be professional, make the right decision even when nobody's watching. For the safety director, support those drivers that do.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
For the drivers, when you're behind the wheel, driving is the event. Do your best to eliminate every distraction. And I'm not talking about just the telephone, electronic devices, distractions in your life. You've got to be able to draw that line that when you get behind the wheel, this is my focus right now. And, have gazelle-like intensity, laser focus on that driving. And that's the most important thing. Surround yourself with space, no matter what. Again, I'll go back to the session we had earlier today with Mr. Tolliver, 3 million mile safe driver. And he talked about decelerate. You can't always control what's going on around you, but you can react to a situation. Allow yourself some space. And for the safety professionals out there, there is no better service that you could offer to your drivers or your employees than to have an expectation that everybody goes home safely every day. And that's what we're here to do.
Amen.
Couldn't agree more. This is a relational business. And I just want to tell you guys, you're both dear friends of mine and appreciate you coming on here. The last question I had for you, which we've got some folks sitting in here listening to us, that if you're listening to our podcast today, we actually had several folks in here just listening in, which I thought was cool. And as we look around, I look to our two guests, dear friends, and every one of the folks that are in here I consider friends. It's a relational business. So speak to that as far as at your companies, with your drivers, those folks, but also the folks that you meet at association meetings, truck driving championships, the enforcement personnel that we have the fortune of having a good working relationship with. Speak to that relational aspect of this business before we let you go.
Oh gosh, that relationship with our peers. I mean, talk about the learning aspect when we're brand new. These are the folks, we all lean on and learn from. Having those relationships with the state agencies, enforcement agencies, that's the best education that you'll get as a safety professional. Build those relationships. We were talking with commercial vehicle enforcement this morning. One raised the question about, how do I get your folks, your inspectors, to come to my facility? Just ask.
Yeah,
that's all you got to do.
Here's my card. Call me, and I'll send somebody out.
100%.
Well, the other piece of that you may not be aware of is all of my drivers know of my relationships with you and state agencies and other safety directors. And when they've got questions that I can't answer, they say, but I think so-and-so, and they probably know the answer. Let me know what they say.
Somebody does, don't they?
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of it. We're always, hey, if we don't know, and I tell people that all the time, if I don't know, we'll figure it out. We'll find somebody that does. We've got, everybody in here I've talked to, hey, we've got an issue. I don't know what the answer is, but we've got a good relationship. Pick up the phone, call them. We'll get it squared away.
It's a team effort.
So when we talked about team earlier within our companies, this industry, really, when we pull together at association meetings and things like this, and we pull together, 200 safety directors and folks from governmental agencies, things like that, we're working as a team on this. Safety is the goal. Protecting life. I talk about that all the time on this podcast. Protecting life. That's our goal. But we got to do this as a team. So we got teams within our companies. But our family gets a little bit bigger when we're coming together at meetings like this, association meetings, where it's people from all over the state, all over the country. Jim coming up from Oklahoma, Kenny coming up from Texas, which, by the way, guys, this is cool that we're actually doing this in person. Thanks for driving up here and doing that.
I'm glad to meet y'all in person.
Yeah.
So,
Mike, when you're talking about that team, though, and I'm thinking about being here at the Missouri Trucking Association Safety Conference. Out in the operational world, these motor carriers may be competitors. But
That's
when
right.
safety guys come together, you wouldn't know that. We're all just family.
Yeah.
And even though I'm from Texas, it's my very first time here. I'm comfortable. I'm at home.
Yeah.
Because I'm around like people. This is just my part of the family from Missouri I'd never met before.
Yeah.
And now I have.
Well put.
And the point about that is the competition's left outside when safety folks come together, because we share a core principle. And that is what Andy said, getting those drivers safe home every night. That's our job, keeping people from getting hurt.
And that aspect that you guys mentioned earlier about the passion for the job, that's key. That is absolutely key to us getting our job done.
Amen.
Guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on, being with us on the podcast. It's good to hear from folks that are sitting on your side of the desk and in the trenches and getting the work done. So we greatly appreciate you being a part of this. Couldn't have had two better guys on for sure.
Was not sure what you were getting me into, Mike, but I've actually enjoyed it.
Thanks for having us on the program. As a fan of the show, this is great professional development when I'm staring out the windshield from time to time. So keep up the good work, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for the kind words.
And to our studio audience, we appreciate you guys coming in and listening. I hope you enjoyed that, to see a little bit about, it's nothing fancy, right? But it's what we do. We just get together and we talk about safety. So, well, we appreciate you being here as well. We've got, a day and a half left of the conference. We've got an awards banquet tonight where we're going to be celebrating drivers of the month, drivers of the year. We're going to be celebrating companies and their milestones and their safety awards. So that's going to be a good time. Brad, you've still got a lot of work to do tonight because you're going to be presenting all of that.
Yeah. We'll find out here in a couple hours who is the Missouri Driver of the Year.
That's right.
2024.
Yeah, we'll crown a new driver for the year, and looking forward to that part of the conference, because it's really important for us to celebrate our drivers, because that's why we're here. So hope you guys enjoy the rest of the conference. Kenny, thanks for coming up. Jim, thanks for being here. To all of our listeners out there, thanks for joining us, and we will catch you next time right here on Driving the Line.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Driving the Line, the Pursuit of Safety. We hope you enjoyed our discussion, and thank you for listening. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Driving the Line, the Pursuit of Safety on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other app you're using. You can also follow Marsh McLennan Agency on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, thanks again for listening. Drive safely, everyone.